Hi, Jon Torrens. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm not going to do much of an introduction. I'm going to just give a little bit of a background because your TEDx talk is kind of what put you on my radar for confidence, and the fact that well, we had a chat a couple of years ago now. I think it feels like forever in the midst of COVID and through the Drive network and all kinds of stuff. But you did an interesting path from video game designer to stand-up comedy to communication coach. So, but there's a lot more. So tell me a little bit about who is Jon Torrens and why confidence, especially from an introvert perspective.
Okay, so at school, I wasn't particularly good academically. I liked art
Mm,
and I liked writing stories, and so art was going to be my thing. Did an art course. I got interested in video editing, and I kind of liked all the details of that.
yeah,
And then someone who'd been on the art course got a job at a video games company and said, "Hey, why don't you come work with me?" So I went and got a job there as a level designer, which I hadn't planned to do
yeah,
at all. But as soon as I started there, I also started doing stand-up comedy. So, I mean, within about 6 months, I'd just seen it, and someone who I worked with liked it as well. And so we thought we'd. So I started doing that as well. And even though I definitely see myself as an introvert, then I thought I was an extrovert because I'm okay standing up in front of people.
yeah,
It was much later I realized the truth of that. And I just got hooked on stand up. So I was doing the two things at the same time. I went full time at stand up, left video games, did it for a couple of years, got good at it, but didn't become a superstar. And then my partner quite rightly said, "So what's the whole plan with the stand up thing?" Uh, and so, okay. And so I left that behind. So I gave up stand up, which was fine. And it was kind of good that I'd done it. I'd gone at it full time. So, I'd done it about 10 years part time.
oh wow,
And yeah, and then went back to games. And so we moved to Ely near Cambridge, which is
yeah,
where we live now. We started a family and we moved there because I got a job at Sony Cambridge. So
okay,
that was great. So
yeah,
PlayStation 3 games.
yeah,
And I'd sort of forgotten about the stand-up stuff, although I was using it for pitching now and again, which
yeah,
was some of those techniques. And then a few years in, I guess it's about 4 or 5 years in, I saw a presentation which wasn't very good. It was by a senior person at Sony. It was a big Sony internal event,
yeah,
and I thought, oh, you need all that stand-up stuff. And so it was just sort of that idea came. And then a year or so later, I left Sony, went to another company. And then all the while I was thinking, hang on, there's something here. And then I started up on my own. And that was almost exactly 10 years ago.
yeah,
And it's funny because throughout the whole journey, I mean, the last 10 years and before that, I've always thought I don't feel particularly confident. So
yeah,
I'm teaching confidence and I help people with that. And I give them all the shortcuts that I've learned. And I guess the clever thing that I did is to take what I've learned from stand up, which is writing, delivery, and I guess mindset, although I didn't realize that I was doing that, and
yeah,
then bring it over to business. So I
yeah,
don't necessarily teach people how to be funny, although I do cover that. But the
yeah,
main thing is just, clarity. Um, but the end result is confidence. And that's the thing. So that's kind of the journey. And then of course, as a self-employed person, I'm I guess I'd been self-employed when I was a stand-up, but now actually sort of running a business, which is a slightly different thing. Now I'm developing confidence in that. So now I'm sort of coming to terms with that. And yeah, it's a constant journey, isn't it? We're
yeah.
all work in progress, I think is the phrase.
Exactly. So what would you say, what is confidence? Should we start there?
Absolutely.
Hmm,
But just as an aside,
yeah,
does my microphone sound okay? I
yes,
didn't actually.
sounds
Yes,
perfect. Yeah.
fantastic. Good. Okay. So um, to define confidence, I think, well, I guess it's lots of things, but I think it's trusting yourself. So when I see someone who is being completely authentic and they're being themselves, I love that. I really envy that when someone really doesn't care what other people think.
Yeah.
And I guess when we communicate with people, we want to see, particularly if it's a presentation situation, which is the kind of thing that I'm helping people with, we want to see, do they trust themselves? Do
Mm,
they exude a bit of confidence? Are they sending me the signals that say, yeah, I'm okay with this?
yeah.
Because if they do that, then I'll trust them.
Yeah.
And that could be as simple as just that first impression, which is something I'm obsessed with, which is that eye contact, smile,
Yeah.
and it's a nice little trick. And the audience thinks, oh, this person knows what they're doing. They're really confident,
Yeah.
even though that speaker may not be confident at all. So I think it's a little bit of trusting yourself, but also, to be honest, it's really knowing your stuff, like knowing what you're talking about. And of course, if you're talking about yourself, in theory, you know all about yourself, but
Yeah.
sometimes we're not comfortable talking about ourselves. And then there's the actual delivery and rehearsal of that.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's another element I've realized as well, which I guess is the first one, which is self-acceptance. And I think that's probably the biggest thing.
And that's
So
probably
after that,
where we start from, because if we
yes,
can't accept ourselves, we can't trust ourselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly. So I should have said that first, but that's the thing. It's just being okay with who you are. If someone tries to insult you, and let's say they call you stupid, and you believe at your core that you are actually stupid, then they'll score a direct hit, and you'll get annoyed, and you'll fight it because you don't want to feel that way. If, however, you're completely okay with who you are, and in this case, okay with your level of intelligence, and you're comfortable with yourself, then that insult won't land, and it'll just be order for ducks back.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is definitely about knowing and trusting yourself. But now there's a little bit of a when does it become arrogance? When do we kind of go over
Yes.
that and go,
Yeah,
okay, well, hang on a minute, I don't like you because you're arrogant now.
exactly. And that's the problem. I've been going around and around in my head with this. I've realized, yes, with you could also define an arrogant person as completely accepting themselves. They have accepted themselves wholly, and it's not good, and it's affecting other people in a horrible way.
Yeah.
But for the rest of us, I guess, yeah, that leads to the question: how do I know if I'm arrogant or not? But I think most of the people I work with are really worried about coming across as arrogant, and
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
they will be self-deprecating, and they will demean themselves. They will damage their own credibility and apologize when they don't need to. And that damages their credibility in the eyes of the audience. So the audience thinks, oh, maybe you aren't very good at this.
Yeah.
And you could argue that, the arrogant person, maybe they cheese people off, but maybe they achieve lots as well. So it's a tricky thing.
Well, exactly.
But I think if you're worrying about coming across as arrogant, then you're probably okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that comes back to the trust. So how do we build the trust? If I liked in your TEDx talk, you talk about that self-talk that goes, this isn't going to go so well. Do you remember the last time you did this? And breaking down that trust in living in the past and going, well, you haven't really been so good at this before, so why would you do it now? So it starts probably with that, I'd assume. Knowing who you are, knowing that, as you say in that TEDx talk, when you get to the interview and you've been late because you've been going through all this stuff in your head, be transparent, but then also accept it. So I suppose the two kind of go hand in hand with, okay, I'm accepting that my head is telling me the wrong things, and I need to trust that I'm outside of that.
Yeah. I think, it's almost being okay with those things that are negative. I think it's who is it? Oh, there's an author whose name is going to come to me because it's on this book. It's called Resilience. There we go. Rick Hanson. There it was. Brilliant. Thank goodness for that. Rick Hanson, I think, says that and maybe this is a common idea, that our fantastically analytical brains, which, as we were hunters and gatherers, were very good at analyzing the past and working out what happened and then making a plan for the future. Unfortunately, we now have dreadful problems of depression, where we think about the past too much and worry about things that should have happened, which of course is pointless. And then we're anxious about the future and, what if? And I think it's fair to say that most of the things that we worry about happening don't happen. So that is wasted effort. Now, of course, that's not to say don't plan for the future.
Yeah.
Definitely, consider the future and make a plan for it. But as soon as you're getting stressed about it, then it's not helping at all. And so I think that instinctive voice, it's really important to try and reprogram that, so that self-talk. Who was talking about it recently? There's a guy called, is it Gabor Mate, I think. I'll have to
Oh, I
find it.
love Gabor Mate, yeah.
Yes, sorry, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's you know, that voice, and or in fact, I think he was talking about if you're getting angry about something, so you
yeah,
know you're getting annoyed with someone else, and drilling right down into it and going, right, well, why are you, you know, you feel like you're not being respected. Okay, so why is that a problem?
yeah,
And it comes down to you not respecting yourself. But the that self-talk instinctively is often very negative, and I still do it. I'll get something wrong and I'll call myself an idiot and I will vocalize it.
yeah,
And I think if it's, you know, if I'm saying it and I'm laughing or it's got a smile on my face, I think, okay, well, maybe that's all right. But there's still something there. You don't need to hear that.
yeah,
Whereas telling yourself you're doing a great job, telling yourself, look, you've done all these things, is super useful. And I think it's really important because your subconscious doesn't know the difference between real and imagined events.
yeah,
So you can tell it and you can feed it anything you want.
yeah,
So if you feed it negative stuff, guess what? You know, if you worry about, oh, what if I mess up all these things?
mm,
What if I do the stupid thing that I did in the past? Then, you know, maybe that'll happen. But if you visualize something positive and tell yourself useful truths, that's what I like
yeah,
to think of. So with an audience, whoever it is, they're on your side. No one really wants you to mess up.
yeah.
And also, in a nice way, they don't really care, right? This isn't, no, you're getting stressed about the pitch or the presentation, which is normal and it's logical. But you know, there'll be a few people in the audience thinking, "Oh, I wonder what's for lunch." You know, like, it's not, you're a small part in their day,
Yeah.
and you know, we're all heroes in our own adventure, but we're bit parts in other people's. So yeah, it's important for a moment, and people want you to do. You know, there's pressure,
Mm.
but ultimately they just want it to go well and go on to the next thing.
Yeah, so it's maybe removing ourselves from no, removing others from our heads and putting their opinions on. I like the quote that you used in your form. You said you used Eleanor Roosevelt, who said,
Yeah,
"No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." So
yeah,
we do that to ourselves, but then put the blame on someone else. Um,
yes.
and going back a bit to now, when we do stuff out of our comfort zones, which is pretty much, if we want to grow and we want to become who we want to be, we constantly do that. Or maybe it's just me, but I seem to live outside my comfort zone most of the time. How, it isn't always easy. It's difficult because you are scared. And you also mentioned that, when you did your stand-up comedy or when you do presentations, you're still nervous. It's not like the nerves go away or so even though you're confident, you can still be nervous. Those
Oh
two
yeah.
don't go together in any way.
No, that's it. And the way I think of it is it's not a scale where you go,
Yeah,
oh, I'm nervous here and I get more and more confident. The fear is always there, which is kind of the bad news for people, is that the
exactly.
very best speakers, even when you're at the top of your game, there will be nerves there, but
Mm.
they're not controlling you. I think the best speakers and the best stand-ups will go out there and think, this will probably go well. That's all you've got. It's like, I can't control what happens, and something unexpected will happen, and I'll just go with it. So it's the other the other quote, which in fact there's a couple of other quotes I like, which is I think it's Eisenhower who said, "I've always found planning to be essential, but plans to be useless." And he
Yeah.
said this in various different forms.
Mm.
Consider what you're going to be doing. Make a good plan.
Mm.
Rehearse, but on the day, just go with it. It won't
Yeah.
won't go according to plan. It's like when people in TV shows and films say, "Oh, I wanted this wedding to be perfect," and I think weddings aren't perfect. By definition, they are chaos. And the most wonderful, the best weddings are chaos, and it's wonderful chaos.
Yeah.
So by striving for perfection, you'll kill it. You
Yeah.
just go with it. Or I met a surgeon once who said he always aims for 90% perfection when he's doing an operation. And I said, "Are you like,
It's so good.
what are you talking about?" He went, "Because in that last 10%, you'll make a terrible mistake. You will
Mm.
cause bleeding. You'll do something stupid.
Yeah.
90% is good enough," which
Yeah, it's
seems
a bit scary.
crazy. But I mean, bearing in mind his 90%, I mean,
Yeah.
that's very good.
Yeah.
Maybe that's someone else's 100%.
Mm.
But I thought that's really interesting. You take it to that point, and then step away.
Yeah. Yeah. And it stands in that stepping away and the fact that plans don't always work out. I think it's
Yeah.
it's a life thing, isn't it? We can plan however much we want. I'm sure you didn't plan to become a stand-up or do what you do now, coaching, but it is usually turns out for the best, I think. Or if it doesn't, it's not over yet. We're kind of still
Well,
moving.
yeah, I'm going to refer to some books. So
Hmm.
a real classic is this one, which is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. And
Yeah,
one of her first things she gets into, I think it's like in the first chapter, she says,
yeah,
you know, you play it through, and it's the
yeah,
same thing. It's like, okay, so you annoy your boss. Okay, so what happens? Oh, they fire you. Okay, they fire you, like you lose your job. Well, you'd get another job. But her point is, whatever happens, you'll handle it.
yeah.
You will actually cope with it, even if it feels like it's the worst thing in the world.
Mhm.
Actually, it'll work out. And there's another one, by the way. So this is so useful. So I like this book, but this is a quote not by it, but it's someone he quotes. And if I can't, oh yeah, no, it is. It's straight away. Thank God for that. So it's basically the idea of what is it? No, you see, I thought it would happen straight away, and it's not there. I'm so
That's
sorry.
okay. No, don't worry about it.
Sorry.
We can always find it.
But it's so his. Oh no, that's because I'm reading the introduction, not the first chapter. Sorry,
Yeah.
big one. Right, here we go. Here we go. Part one. Let go. It's a very good one. So thank God for that. It was there. It's it's not there. Oh yes, sorry. So Charles Horton Cooley wrote in 1902.
Yeah.
Now stay with me on this one. I am not what I think I am. I am not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that's a lot of I ams, but it's basically we define ourselves by how we think other people see us.
Yes, I agree completely. And I've had many conversations around this because it is huge, just that sort of, whose head are you in kind of thing. So it comes back to surrounding yourself with the people that think you are who you want to become.
That's it.
Yeah,
And yeah, and that idea that you are the sum of the people you
yeah,
spend
yeah,
time with.
yeah,
So if someone's bringing you down, then that's going to have a detrimental effect. But I
yeah.
think that, and that's why that's something that I really envy in other people is people who don't care. By which I
Mm,
mean, stand-up comic or just say anything, or a speaker will say anything. I think, wow, you're not worrying about what other people think.
yeah.
And I think I certainly do that, and it's a great thing to let go of.
And not so easy.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, this is ongoing. All this
Yeah,
stuff is
yeah.
really, yeah, it's really long term, and I guess it just, yeah,
And
it's
do
not.
you think it's maybe a cultural thing as well? The society that we grow up in, whichever culture it is, that trains us in a way that, I think in our culture from South Africa, Afrikaans culture, which is kind of a Dutch background, it's always what would the people think? When you go to town, you put your best dress on and you do that whole thing. So it becomes ingrained in you that what would the people think or what would someone else think? Because I want them to think well of me, but
Mm,
that hampers my confidence really because am I really good enough? That whole
absolutely. I
narrative.
mean, I see that as a very British way of doing it as
Hmm.
well. What will people say?
Yeah,
It's dreadful. Oh, what? And
yeah.
that's a dreadful way to live your life because
Hmm.
it really doesn't matter, and that's why we have tabloid newspapers that are talking about
Yeah,
celebrity news. Well, what, it doesn't really matter. Just let them live their life. We're very nosy. We like the
yeah.
but on the other hand, I can say very broadly, in America, if you go
Mm.
to the United States and point a microphone in front of an 8-year-old's face and say, "Tell me all about you," they go, "Hey, this is," and they're all ready to go.
That's
Very generally.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas in this country, it'd be
yeah.
well, with an adult, they would say, "Well, why? I don't understand. What do you want to know? Why do you know? What would people think?" And certainly then not being authentic, which is what I mentioned at the beginning, is letting people see who you really are.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of courage, and typically we
Starting with
don't.
knowing who you really are though, because we don't always know who we really are, because we've been, the one that was good at art at school or the labels. We get to know ourselves according to our labels. I'm a mother or I'm a sister or I'm a this. So how do we break it down? How do we go back to, okay, who am I really?
I'm not sure if I've got a good answer for that. Whether it's because that's proper soul searching, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess when I like spending time on my own because I'm an introvert, I like meditating, and I try and do that most weekdays. And by that, it really is just 10 or 15 minutes with my eyes closed. That's all it is. And whatever happens, happens. Sometimes I start dozing off, and so that's not but the reason I mention it is because getting outside is certainly really good.
Yeah.
And I think that can help you get to the core of what you're about. So I've told people for years, tell people your why, like Simon Sinek's start with why, your motivation. But I think sometimes I struggle to work out what mine is. And I think recently I came up with the idea that it's I like having adventures, which is I like a mission. I like to plan for something. I like to go and feel a little bit uncomfortable. So that might be going out for a run and getting cold and wet, or going and doing a speaking gig.
Yeah.
Or training people and then returning. And it's very much that sort of classic story thing. I then like to be here in this room, all comfortable, cup of tea, and if it's raining outside, that's even better. And I think that's what an adventure is, where you're just going out and trying stuff. And linked to that, of course, is helping people.
Yeah.
Because,
helping
fun.
them find their adventures, really, isn't it? So encouraging that adventurous story aspect around it all. And I wonder if it isn't maybe easier for introverts to do all this, to reflect and go within and kind of think about these things, because an extrovert, by definition, or generally speaking, it gets their energy from being with people, and that can be loud and noisy and not always so reflective.
Absolutely. I think the small group of extroverts. So yeah, I said in my introduction, I didn't talk about the true definition, but that's you've defined it for me. So thank you. That the small group of extroverts I've worked with who wanted to help with their communication skills typically won't prepare, because they're used to interacting and winging it. So they'll throw a couple of slides together, or they won't do much prep, and they rely on interaction, and that's great, and that works until it doesn't work, and then they've got no basis.
Yeah.
Whereas the introvert typically, I find, will prepare.
Yeah.
And they think, well, if I make some great visuals, for example, then no one will look at me, and then I don't have to do any of the interaction. So I think you're probably right that the extrovert thinks, well, I don't need to, I'll do it in the moment, and that will work. And typically that does work. Whereas you're absolutely right, the introvert can dwell on stuff for ages. And but also, and that comes back to that idea of telling a story and being authentic, is that people often don't think that their story is interesting, which is amazing. And I find everyone's story interesting because they're not me. They've got something that they did that was slightly different or very different.
Yeah.
And when they give an introduction, they talk about maybe they've come from another country and they've lived in different parts of the world, which I've never done. That's that journey, and that's fascinating. So and it's something that's ongoing as well. This is my story so far. So I think finding out what our story is and what we've achieved. I mean, if you're self-employed, there's an idea that it's a really good idea, because of course you get anxious about everything. You keep positive feedback. You keep a little folder, and when you're feeling a bit low, you look at it and go, oh yeah, this person loved me and thought I was brilliant at this thing, and I did really well at this gig and they appreciated me. So Mark Hansen, is it Mark? Did I say that? So I referred to it earlier on, and then I've forgotten his name already. Rick Hansen.
Yes.
That's the resilience guy. He talks about, and this may not be originally his idea at all, but simply the evolution of the brain. So you've heard of the lizard brain. So in theory, if you look at the human brain, there's a sort of central part, the core. And in terms of design and evolution, that's the same as our ancestors who were lizards. So we're going that far back. And that part, which still remains, the instinct is survival. It's life or death. So when we experience fear, and fear of public speaking specifically, there's a little bit of us that says, what if I die? Right? It actually thinks I die. So there's just a little thing there. And so his idea is, I think it's something like you pet the lizard. Oh God, what is it? Hug the monkey. I can't remember. Anyway, and you can find it. But so that's the first thing, is comforting ourselves that way. And then the next part, look at the sort of slightly larger part, is the rodent. So, our ancestors were rodents at the time of the dinosaurs, and that's concerned with reward.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've read Who Moved My Cheese.
I'm actually rereading it at the moment as we speak.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, and that's all about, I need
Yeah.
reward. I need sustenance.
Yeah.
So he says, remind yourself, and this is all about programming yourself again. So first thing is, I'm physically safe. Right? That's the first one for the lizard. But
Yeah.
for the rodent, it's remind yourself, I am rewarded, I'm sustained, I'm paid,
I'm abundant, I'm all that. Yeah.
I'm getting these things. But also when you eat, really live it. It's being present. It's like, I'm taking in this food. This is sustenance. It's delicious. It's for me. I've earned it. And it goes in. And then the last part, the largest part, which is the prefrontal cortex? Can't remember. Yeah. So largest part of our brain. And that's the primate. And that's all concerned with being included and being part of the network, the tribe. And you can argue
connected
connected. Yeah. All by that. And you could argue that, I don't know, several thousand years ago, if you were rejected from the tribe, then you might die. So and arguably, if you don't have enough food, you'll die. So they're all linked to death in some way. But the idea there is you remind yourself, I've got friends and family, colleagues, they love me, they trust me, they respect me, and I love, trust, and respect them also. I'm included. So it's all these reactions are lightning fast, right? You have this instinctive emotional reaction. It's the fight, flight, or freeze response. And it happens instantly. And what you've got to do is take a moment and reprogram yourself in that moment, which I guess is a neuro-linguistic programming technique of just saying, right, I'm seeing this, but actually these are the facts. So I don't need to do this particular. It's like if you have a trusted friend or colleague and you're getting stressed in that moment, they're going to say, right, slow down. What do you actually, look, do you have to do this thing right now? No, then don't do it. Take 5 minutes. Can you make a cup of tea at this point? Right, let's do that. And it's just taking that moment. I mean, I've done it with emails where someone sent me an email and it's about something important. So I think, right, I'll come straight back with it. But then I send it and there's an error in there. So I've put like the wrong day with the right date. And then they come back and I go, oh God, and I get freaked out. And so I send back something quickly and then I make another error. Whereas if I'd waited for 5 minutes and just looked, I'd have said something that made sense. But also I've had it with messages where they've sent something straight away and then the two messages have crossed and it's, if you just wait for a little bit, even if it is really important or even super urgent, wait 10 minutes.
Yeah. And breathe.
And breathe.
There's a lot of importance in breath.
It's amazing. So, and of course, when you get nervous, everything accelerates. Yeah. So you can reverse that by slowing down your breathing. Yeah. Taking a moment, and it does calm you down.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. And you learn these little tricks. I mean, I hate speaking, live or video or things like that. It used to, and I still get really, really nervous, but it used to be to a point where it was like, okay, well, I'm actually going to die now. I can't do this. This is ridiculous. I can't even see, my eyes do this funny kind of glitch. Which is now much better. But it is, then you kind of just want to be absorbed. So you want to kind of ground yourself completely and just remember that you are not going to die. You are just talking to another person. It is not the end of the world. And it's crazy how such a simple thing, for some people it's so easy, and for others we really have to work hard to just do that simple thing.
Yeah. Although I would say, when you see someone for whom it appears to be really easy, who seems to be really confident, a gifted speaker, that might not be the case. It might, well, first of all, it might be that they are nervous. Yeah. And there are people who appear to be confident, but they're nervous every time. But you're not seeing the 20 times when they absolutely bombed, and when they were, when it went wrong. And you're not seeing the hundreds or thousands of hours of practice, where they've just done it again and again and again. They've put in the work, and we're all, different parts of the journey. So I like running. So I went for a run before this, and running is a good metaphor for life, I think. So sometimes I live out in Ely, which is basically out in the countryside, and I'll see lots of different runners. and dog walkers and stuff. And sometimes I'll see someone running and, you know, they might be really struggling. And I think, oh, I'm doing better than them. They might have just run the equivalent of a half marathon.
Yeah.
And I'm running, you know, a couple of miles. So they're way ahead of me. Similarly, I'll see someone who's striding along and they look amazing and their pace is incredible and they've got a great form. And I think, oh, I'm terrible at this. Maybe they're only running 1 kilometer. You know, you don't know. So there's different things. So when you see that person who seems to be brilliant, don't ever think, oh, well, I'll, you know, it's easy for them.
Yeah. That's true. And it comes back to that comparison that we do so easily. It's like, oh, look at him, or look at her, or look at them, which is exasperated by this social media and, you know, all this stuff. So we always go, oh, hell, I'm not as good enough, or, you know, it's moving away from that. And that's why it's also, even for, you know, what you said about being self-employed and having a folder and going back to it, don't we then still go, you know, I'm only okay if other people think I'm okay? So to even move away from that and go, I am so much bigger, you know, I'm part of this whole universe, and to remove ourselves from what other people might think or have thought or will think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's the end goal. I think that thing with the folder is a good short-term thing, but absolutely it's becoming quite zen about it.
Yeah.
And just being okay with who you are, what's happening. And yeah, maybe it'll work out. I don't know. I think if you're putting in the work, you know, if you're showing up each day and doing things, then these good things will come. And maybe that's the rule of the universe. But I think you're right. It's detachment, right? I suppose that's a proper Zen lesson. I've mentioned Zen a few times. I don't really know much about it, although apparently you can't define Zen anyway.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
But I like to say it's a bit Zen, but it's basically just, yeah, it's quite ethereal, but detachment is the key. And
it's a funny, because it's a contrast. It's detachment while being connected, detaching and connecting at the same time. It's that it's a daily journey, as with all these things. I think confidence is maybe the first step of it all. Kind of, okay, I need to find or be okay with who I emerge to be, because I don't think we even know who we are, all of us, yet. I think that's the whole point of this journey of life, is to kind of get to know who we are and being okay with it in the process. And then showing up authentically is so cool, because we can say, you know, wow, this is difficult, or that was easy, or whatever, and define ourselves as different to others and be okay with it.
And I think being present then, as you say, because saying like being detached and connected might sound contradictory, but I think it's being detached from events, but being completely aware of them as well. So if I'm out walking or running or something, then I just like to see what's going on. I never wear earphones while I'm running. I like to just notice. And I'll say hello to wildlife. You know, if I see something, I'll say. So today I had a really weird one where there was a squirrel, and he was running along some line of trees, but he decided to run along next to me through this line of trees. It was the weirdest thing. I thought, why didn't you just go straight up? Like every squirrel goes to a tree and goes straight up, but instead he was darting through the trees next to me, and then he ran ahead of me.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was
amazing.
It's just lovely just to see things like that, but just to notice what's going on, just to see what's happening. And I guess that is part of that reaction, and that calmness is just noticing, right, this is happening, this is how I'm feeling, and I'm not going to get engaged with it just yet. I'm going to take my time. I think that's something that was part of my brain that was kind of indulged when I did stand-up comedy, which is that egoless inquiry, that noticing and saying, oh, you're sitting like that, and to me this looks like you're this person, and without teasing them, just saying, your hair's like that, or just like a child would do. So a young child might see me in the street and say, mummy, that man has no hair, or even better, like, why don't you have any hair? And it's not an egotistical thing, they're just genuinely curious, and I'm more than happy to talk to them about it. And I like that. But their parent might be mortified to say, I'm so sorry, but it all comes down to, are you okay with it?
Yeah.
You know, are you okay with who you are? Are you okay with the way that you look? All those aspects of yourself. There's, I can't remember who came up with it, but there's great bit of thinking. I'm okay, you're okay. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
So
yes.
Very simple. It's a simplification of another great thinker's thoughts, but here it is. It's a very simple matrix of, if there's you and another party, the worst case scenario is I'm not okay, you're not okay, which is basically where we don't know what we're doing, we're doomed. That's the sort of end result. Is that it's all chaos. So you might both be working at a company and you think it's terrible, and so you're being really negative, you're not helping each other out. Okay. But the other two permutations are a bit more interesting. There's I'm not okay, you're okay, which is it's all right for you. So that's when you see, oh, here's that other speaker, or here's this skilled person. I'll never be as good as them. There's no point in trying. So it's quite negative, and it's assuming that, you know, there's a sort of, it's like the idea of the gift. You know, oh, they're a gifted whatever. I don't think anyone's a gifted anything. I think, you know, something happened when they was a kid, and when they were a kid and they became, you know. And you could argue also we're all born with supreme confidence, and it gets whittled away through childhood.
Exactly.
And don't be silly. Don't be silly.
Behave yourself.
Behave yourself. It could be a terrible lesson. Although I'm a parent, and I'm sure I've said that to my kids many times.
Me too.
And then I'm okay, you're not okay is you're doing it wrong. You know, you don't know what you're doing. I'm better than you in some respect. And again, that's not really helpful. However, the perfect combination is I'm okay, you're okay. And that's, we're both happy with what we're doing. We're going to collaborate. We're going to make progress. Now, that is, as I say, super simplification, but I think that's the important thing, is to make sure that you're okay. I guess that comes back to what we've been talking about. You're okay with who you are and what you're doing. You might still want to improve. It's not that you're not going to be ambitious. You still want to achieve great things, but you're not beating yourself up. And you know, I posted recently on LinkedIn. I was talking about dedication. I just thought, you know, it's all about showing up. Just, you know, you need to put in the work, which is kind of linked to the New Year's resolution idea. And as I mentioned, I like running. And on Wednesday, I had this phenomenal experience where I'd started running sort of on the 2nd, and I've been doing sort of 5K. And a bit of context is that I got COVID in March of 20. Hang on, when was it? No, it was last year. But the point is, in May 2021, I'd managed to run a really long distance. I found I could run further than normal, and I ran like a good 23 kilometers. So it was a phenomenal distance. I'd never run it before, and I did it a couple of times. Then in March last year, I got COVID, and that completely nixed my ability, and I found I was down to, you know, and so I was running sort of 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers, and then just sort of maxing out. And I thought, okay, well, I'll, you know, that's a pain, but I'll work at it anyway. So this year, I thought, right, I'm going to run regularly. And then on Wednesday, I went out for a run, and I just kept going, and it felt effortless. And I did 15 kilometers, which is further than I'd run for, you know, a long time. Certainly longer than I'd run from, you know, since I had COVID. And it was just that lesson. So I posted this thing about dedication and turning up, and I was like, there you go, it works. You know, even though it was only a week, it seemed a bit weird. But there's something about that, getting that habit. So I think with confidence, I think you meant, I don't know if you mentioned it, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Moving out of your comfort zone constantly.
Exactly. You know, you do it, and it is horrible, but you do it a little bit. You just do it a little bit. So when it's with confidence, I find, and particularly with speaking confidence, it's volunteering to do that meeting, just to, you know, contribute and maybe lead the meeting, even though you don't like it. The other people there don't really care. You know, it's not a big deal for them. So you do it, and you try something different, and you can experiment a little bit, but you're putting in that work and showing up. And as well as it helping develop you, people will notice. People will see and go, oh, okay, yeah. So Michelle's turned up again. She's doing the thing again. Good. And it's, you know, it's not. So I think with physical fitness, there's a point where I think it's like 2 or 3 months in where you start to see some serious results. Or maybe after a month, but, you know, 2 or 3 months. But by that point, you've ingrained the routine. You've done enough of the the unpleasant experiences where you just go, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think the same could be true of confidence, where you've bothered to go to Toastmasters, or you've bothered to go out to a networking event. No one likes networking events. You've bothered to, come to a meeting and maybe lead a meeting or do something like that, where you're pushing yourself a little bit. You get to the point where you're kind of conditioned. So it's not necessarily easy, but you're doing it regularly enough. That's when the great stuff happens, when you don't expect it, and you have that moment where you go, oh, this went well. And it's because you've put in all that work. And I guess that comes back to that idea of someone else might then see you and go, oh, right, you're clearly brilliant at this. And you're thinking, no, but
yeah,
you should have seen me 3 months ago. I had a terrible time.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I have a theory that showing up is 3/4 of the way there. So just showing up and being consistent in authentically showing up is already winning at it, kind of.
Yes. So with my analogy of the running, let's say you wanted to do a marathon and you're not in shape.
Yeah.
That 3 months where you can then run. So I don't know how many kilometers a marathon. Let's say it's 50. It's like 50 kilometers. 50. At that 3 month mark, you might only be able to run 6 or 7, but you've put in 3/4 of the work. Like you're definitely gonna make, as long as you're probably gonna stick at it, and you're probably gonna do it because you've ingrained that thing and you've bought the proper shoes and you're used to doing it and it's in your routine. So I like that. I think the realizing you're closer than you are. There's an author called what's he called? Daniel Priestley. So I've got 4 of his books. Oh, you can't see it.
Oh wow, no.
Anyway, and he says that if you're aiming to make, let's say you want to make £1 million a year, which of course is a ridiculous amount of money, but great target. He said when you hit for a self-employed person in the UK, when you earn something like 80,000 or 84,000 a year, you hit the VAT threshold. So things change, and things are more efficient. I think you have to publish your earnings. He says when you're at that point, you're halfway to $1 million. But I think that doesn't work out. But I can see what he means by that point, because I haven't hit that yet. And I thought I was close to before the pandemic. But I can see that maybe I won't hit $1 million, but I can see how that's all the work you need to then.
It's that showing up, and brings us back to the definition of confidence, because confidence is that trust in I can do this because I've been doing it for whatever 2 or 3 months or however long I've been doing it. I've been showing up. Therefore, it's this subconscious thing of, okay, I'm okay. I can trust that I will show up tomorrow because I've been doing it for so long. I remember saying to someone, I worry about arriving at training sessions late. And very cleverly he said, how many times have you been late? And I went, I'm never late. Oh yeah. I mean, maybe it's self-fulfilling. Maybe I need to be nervous about it to make sure I turn up. But well, this is the point, everyone says nothing you worry about comes true. And it's like, well, maybe it's because I've been worrying about it that it's not coming true. So we can go both ways.
Maybe, yes, maybe. Well, I guess it's the balance, isn't it? It's thinking about it and planning for it. But as soon as it gets stressful, you find that midway point. Whereas, if you can't get anything done and it takes being terrified to make it happen, then that's a start. So we don't want that, but
but I mean, from an introvert's perspective, actually, what is your definition of an introvert?
We didn't get into that properly, did we? So I always thought an extrovert was loud and an introvert was quiet, so therefore I was an extrovert. It's how you recharge, it's how you get energy. And as soon as I heard that, which was a couple of years after I'd started, so 8 years ago, it all made sense. And I realized that I love spending time on my own. I need to be on my own. I do like socializing, but if I can avoid it, I will. And that's just how it is. So if I find out that, so I'm married with 2 kids, and it's a nightmare. No, it's fantastic, but I need that time. But if I ever find out, I might have to go and drive somewhere for a few hours, or do a job, I can't wait. I love that. Whereas my wife, I think, is more of an extrovert, and she needs to be with other people. So that works out.
And that's it. I think a lot of us are ambiverts in a way, because you or introverts can behave in an extrovert way. We also love parties and socials and all that stuff, and can do speaking gigs and all that. But you go a little bit nutty if you don't have your quiet time or your alone time. Things just don't make sense after a long school holiday and children in the house all day, or yeah.
It's draining. It's
Yeah.
absolutely draining. And I remember doing sort of in the first few years, I would travel to London. I'd get up very, very early, travel to London, do a day of training, and come back, and I'd be exhausted.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, it's because I've been standing up all day, or sort of moving around. And I thought, well, maybe it's a little bit of it is the introvert thing.
Yeah.
That it's just constantly talking to people.
Mm.
Although I then did see something that said if you're talking a lot, then basically you're not as much oxygen gets to your brain. So if you're talking non-stop, that can be quite exhausting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe there's something there.
Maybe.
But certainly, as I mentioned with the idea of the adventure, I love getting onto a train and heading out. In fact, when I finish doing a day of training, I'm on quite a high. It's just this lovely walk from wherever I am to the train station, and get on the train, and that's absolute bliss. That's.
And do you listen to music then, or do you also connect with what's going on?
I'll do something that's nothing to do with work. So I might play a game. I've stopped playing games on my phone now, but I might do that, or I'll watch a YouTube video or something. So yes, kind of equivalent. I won't actually listen to music, but I'll do something that's just complete leisure.
But you're going in though, so out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sort of I want to. I mean, I guess I might be on a train packed full of people, but it's just me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that is one of my favorite things, is also going on the train with music on and walking around London. But you've kind of got your bubble on when you have your music on your ears, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know someone who can't run without listening to music. I mean, when he said, "What do you listen to?" I said, "I never listen to anything," and he couldn't get it. And I remember about 15, 20 years ago, they banned music at the New York Marathon, and there was uproar. All these people, when you cannot, they just couldn't. But I thought, well, just deal with it. You don't need to have. But I couldn't relate to it.
Yeah. And so, did they continue the ban? Did they actually?
I think so. I don't know. I think it must have been around. Yeah, it's around 2005, and I think that they probably got a problem with people wearing iPods and just bashing into each other at the start. I imagine. I mean, it's bad enough everyone's doing this and not looking where they're going and falling over. I mean, I do it, but it clearly becomes such a problem. I don't know how it is.
It'd be interesting because some people train that way, and then to kind of take away that training crutch would be detrimental, I suppose.
Well, apparently there was uproar, but I don't know.
I can imagine. Jon, thank you so much. Your insights are amazing, and I've got some really nice quotes and books to add to the list. I'll put them all in the video. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. The time flew by.
It did, definitely. I hope we get to chat again soon.
Likewise.
Thank you.